like a Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for another Sega Saturn review. Now, if like me you grew up in the late 1980s and the early 1990s over here in the UK, you will have probably seen arcade machines all over the place. We had them in chip shops, bars, pubs, and of course we had arcades fully devoted to all the arcade games of the time. You will have seen games like Shinobi, Robocop, R-Type, Space Harrier, Outrun all over the place, and it was common practice to see them. But what wasn't so common was an arcade to console perfect conversion at the time. In fact, if you played these games when they were released on systems like the Master System, the Spectrum, the Amstrad, the NES, it was likely that you were probably going to feel a little bit disappointed because they really didn't bring that arcade experience to home. And it wasn't really until the Sega Saturn came along in the mid-1990s that we started getting what I would call arcade perfect conversions. And that is where today's game comes in, because we are taking a look at Sega Ages Volume 1, which came out over here in the PAL region in 1996. It had an America release in 1997, but it was only called Sega Ages over there. Now, this game didn't come out as a collection in Japan. All of these games had original releases by themselves because they had a massive series of Sega Ages games over in Japan. And of course we will be doing what we always do. We're going to talk about how it looks, how it sounds, how it plays, what kind of content and lifespan we've got offer on here, and whether it is still worth playing today and can potentially make our Sega Saturn top 10. So like always, I'm going to start with visuals first, and I think it would be fair to say that all three of these games are the very best looking versions that were available at the time of the release on the Saturn, because they all look fantastic. They are clear, bright, colourful, vivid, everything moves at frenetic pace. There really is no issues with the games running and the way they look. If you were comparing these with what we had when they originally came out on the 8-bit systems, they are worlds and leagues apart, because these games are pretty much what I would consider arcade perfect. Now, it's a very long time since I played these games in the arcade, but I don't really see how they can't be, because they all look and perform absolutely fantastic. I don't think Space Harrier is quite as impressive as Afterburner and Outrun, especially the frenetic pace of Afterburner. I just think it's incredible, and it's so hectic and really, really in your face, and the tremendous sense of speed that Outrun gives you as well when you're playing it, and the wonderful sprite skin and visuals on there. I haven't really got anything negative to say at all in the way that the Sega Ages collection looks. So moving on to the sound effects and music next, and I think it would be fair to say that when this collection was released, none of these games had sounded any better at all. The sound effects and the music are all vastly superior to all of the versions that we'd seen before on the cartridge or cassette-based systems of the 80s and early 90s. The only downside I would probably say is the sound effects can get a little bit repetitive in Space Harrier and Afterburner, much more so than Outrun. But again, that's part of the experience of playing these games. Now, in terms of game music, we have got some absolute classic tracks in here. Some of the Afterburner tracks and the Space Harrier main theme are really, really good, but of course the major strength for the collection is the fantastic 3 Outrun tracks that are just synonymous, I feel, with the game and the collection and music of the time. It was really up there as some of the best game music around. So what I'm going to do is give you some samples of the in-game music so you can decide for yourself what you think is the best. So moving on to the gameplay next, and there's more good stuff here because all three of these games are just fantastic, simple, pick up and play arcade fun. It means anyone can have a go at these and do relatively well. There are no complex gameplay mechanics to learn in any of the games. Now, of course, on the downside, that means there's no real depth to the gameplay in any of the games, but of course, they're just arcade games, so they're not meant to have that. They're designed to give you that pick up and play, short-term thrills and spills, and all three of these games still deliver in that regard to this day. So moving on to content and lifespan next, and if this collection of games does have one weakness, it is of course the lifespan of each of the games, because none of them are long-term games. If we look at Afterburner 2, it's got a total of 21 stages, Space Harrier has 18 different stages, and Outrun has 15 possible paths with a total of 5 endings. And of course that sounds like quite a lot, but these games do not take very long to complete. Outrun, if you play through that, it only takes about 10 minutes to complete one route. So it really depends on if you've got that perseverance just to come back and try and beat your high scores. That really is where the games have any kind of longevity. Of course, though, these games are just designed for pick up and play fun. That's what I said with the gameplay, and of course they excel in that regards. So yes, they're games that you're going to come back to from time to time, have a quick go on and try and beat your best scores. They're not games that you're going to sit and play for 1 or 2 hours in one go. So like always, that leaves us with our two final questions. Is Sega Ages Volume 1 still worth playing nowadays, and does it feature in our Sega Saturn Top 10? Now, without a doubt, I can highly recommend Sega Ages because all three of these games are still enjoyable, pick up and play, fun experiences. Now, the big question is, does it feature in our Sega Saturn Top 10? You can see the Top 10 going up the screen now. The kind of games that we've got in there, Panzer Dragoon Saga, Shining Force 3, Resident Evil, we have got some really good quality stuff. And unfortunately, due to the fact that there's just not enough content and lifespan in this collection, it means Sega Ages can't enter the top 10. It's still a great experience. It's still short-term fun and thrills, which is exactly what you want. But in terms of having enough content to get into the top 10, it simply doesn't quite make it. But like always, these are just my thoughts and my thoughts alone. I'm always interested in hearing everybody's opinions on all of the games that I review, and Sega Ages is no different. So let me know your thoughts on this collection of 3 games down below. Like always, I'll be back in the near future with another review. Goodbye for now.